Hi, welcome to the Dive Into Reiki podcast. Today we have a special episode, and I'm super grateful. I have the team of Reiki Unified joining us. And this is a non-profit organization that is really helping us organize to see about the legislation and see how we can protect our freedom to practice Reiki the way we want, and also without having to go through a lot of legislation. So I'll ask them to introduce themselves as they're wonderful. And I'll start with Susan Mitchell. Hi, Susan, thank you so much.
Hi, Natalie, it's delightful to be here and also with my cohorts.
Hi.
Hi, and then, so please everybody, if they can mute and turn off the camera unless they're Reiki Unified, because this is really gonna be them talking for at least the first part, then we may open it to questions later on.
So I've been practicing Reiki since 1978. I was trained in first and second degree by Hawayo Takata. And I was the director for 10 years of the Reiki Alliance. I've edited for a few Reiki magazines and edited the kind of memorial book for Phyllis Furamoto called In Her Own Voice. I'm working, no, I'm not working, that would be inaccurate. I am soon to begin to work on Hawayo Takata's memoir and prepare that for publication. And I have a practice in Spokane and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Susan. And we appreciate so much your beautiful work with the books. I can't wait to read those memoirs when you start on them, because there is not a lot of that material. So I really appreciate, and I really admire like your work and how much you have been consistent. As you said, always accurate. I love that you use the word accurate, right? But thank you so much for that. So we're also welcoming today Helene Williams, who is also part of the organization. Hi, Helene.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks so much for having us here today. So I am a registered nurse, and I've been a Reiki practitioner and teacher since 2007. My main focus has always been Reiki in healthcare because I practiced Reiki in a hospital setting for a long time, as well as hospitals and hospices. And I love getting the word out there about using Reiki in that way. My lineages used to be Reiki Ryoho, of course, like everybody's is pretty much. My teacher is Francina, and I'm just happy to be here today. I think we all come from a little bit different lineage, and we're just coming together so we can share this information that's important to all practitioners.
Thank you so much, Helene. And if you have been listening to this podcast for a while or watching it, Helene was actually the first interview. So if you want, you can review that episode, and it's quite lovely. So next on my screen, Christopher.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christopher. Thank you so much for having us, Natalie. Christopher Tellez, and I'm a San Francisco-based Reiki master. I have a private practice here. I've been practicing Reiki since 2010 and teaching Reiki since 2016. And I'm super happy to be part of Reiki Unified. And I'm delighted to be here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for saying yes and organizing this and doing all the wonderful work you do. So I'm really grateful. And we complete the team today with Rita.
Hi, thank you so much for having us on. Greatly appreciate it. I am a Reiki master and teacher, and I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts, and have been involved in the opposition efforts to legislation that has been filed in the state many times to license not only Reiki, but alternative and complementary health practitioners.
Thank you so much, Rita, for introducing yourself and leading that charge to protect our rights, right? Because it starts with one state, but then it spreads, and then I'll be, I don't know, teaching like weird yoga Reiki one day. So thank you so much. So I know what Reiki Unified is, but many of the people watching this podcast or listening to it may not really know what Reiki Unified is. So I don't know which of you four would like to take this one and explain very easily what Reiki Unified is and what it's trying to do. And you can then jump
All right.
each other and complement each other. Don't be shy. This is a conversation.
Okay. Well, thank you, Natalie. So again, my name is Christopher. I'm going to be answering this question today. So Reiki Unified, our mission essentially is to unite the United States Reiki community to oppose state regulation. And the way that we do this is by educating our community on why regulating Reiki will hurt our practice and everything that is coinciding with any potential legislation within various states. And we do that by educating people through our website, through our newsletters, and through social media. We also do lots of petitions and letter writing campaigns and help people understand how to work with the legislators. So, you know, our tagline is, you may have noticed in our logo, it says together we are stronger. And we decided that that's really important because the reality is that we have over 150 styles of Reiki, and we need to be able to unite together so that we can maintain our autonomy of our practice. Essentially, we're stronger together compared to some of each of our parts. So we're super happy to be here today. We'll talk more about what's going on within potential legislation that's coming forth.
Thank you, Christopher. And I think it's a pity is legislation bringing us together, but beyond once we solve that, I think it's also a beautiful goal. Again, many lineages to really have common goals and come together as a community versus sometimes being so divisive, right? So, or like going over details that don't matter, but really taking this as an opportunity to actually improve as a community. So sometimes that's what challenges are. So when I first saw it, I'm like, well, licensing is not a bad idea. You know, maybe it's going to take a few wackos out of there. And then I saw some of the educational materials you had. I was like, oh, this is really, really important not to have this legislation, right? So a little bit, who can explain a little bit what is happening about the license requirements? And I think it started in Massachusetts, right? So who wants to explain a little bit what is happening?
Okay, thank you. Massachusetts has had bills drafted for the last 5 legislative sessions. This year, the State Attorney General, Maura Healey, has redrafted the old one, which was S-168, an act regulating body works, and refiled it as an act regulating alternative healing therapies. And the identical bill has been filed in the House and in the Senate to ensure its passage. The purpose of the bill, according to the Attorney General's office, is to create a regulatory structure for alternative healing therapies to prevent criminals from using them as fronts for human trafficking. So Reiki being included in this it's ridiculous because there hasn't been a conviction, okay, of a Reiki practitioner for human trafficking in Massachusetts for the last, we had an attorney look it up, okay? And it was for the last 15 years, which is as far back as the records went, if not ever. So historically, we were not included in some of the earlier versions of the bill. And I really don't know how we got into them. Originally, they started as an act to strengthen the anti-human trafficking law. And what they're not seeing, okay, is up on the Attorney General's website is a report that identifies from a national organization. It's called the Polaris Group, and it identifies human trafficking by organized crime. And they will say that there may be a massage place that's connected to a dry cleaner, that may be connected to a shoe repair place. And this is in multiple towns, and the legitimate businesses launder the money for the human trafficking rings.
Oh, God.
So most Reiki practitioners are sole practitioners. You know, we don't work out of these venues. So
Also, we don't
know,
get to launder a lot of money.
right? Now, this law is particularly onerous because you cannot volunteer in a hospital or a hospice without a license. You can only work on your immediate family members. You can't help your neighbors or your friends without a license.
So even Reiki 1 will be affected. Oh my
Everyone,
God.
everyone.
How much, just out of curiosity, and how much will a license cost?
Okay, we don't have exact figures yet, but a licensure fee is, you know, 100 or several hundred, but it's going to hit the teachers hard because there's a $5,000 bond, $1,000 to apply for a license to teach, and more thousands to have your program approved. And every teacher, okay, like if I had someone come help me, that person was going to have to be licensed. So we figure around $8,000 to get a program approved. So it's going to put a lot of people out of business.
Well,
It's
including me. I'm the first one. I'm out.
and, you know, it's going to affect the public in their healthcare choices. And it's going to affect people's ability to earn a living. And another thing is the bill, the way it's set up in Massachusetts, is it's under the Massage Therapy Board. And there will be 3 massage therapists and 2 practitioners from like 150 modalities. So it's going to be massage that's going to be setting the standards for the way we practice, the educational standards for our teaching programs. And, you know, it's just going to hurt more than 150 different types of Reiki if they try to standardize it.
Especially
Because
small classes where, for example, many teachers have very small classes because either we live in small cities or we enjoy small classes, and you cannot afford $8,000 if you really live off small classes versus 25. So beyond everything else, you're also going to affect the way we teach even everywhere.
right, and you may have to take additional courses because if massage is setting it, you know, I mean, what they've done in other states is you have to be a licensed massage therapist to practice Reiki.
Like in Florida.
Yeah.
Ooh. So if I'm not in Massachusetts, I'm like, okay, Rita, nice meeting you. Good luck. I live in New York City. What, like, I don't know if, well, why should I care? Like, what could happen if they pass it in Massachusetts for people who live in other states? And I don't know who wants to take that question. If you're gonna,
I'll take that one.
Perfect.
So once legislation passes in one state, it's very common for other states to quickly follow. So we've already seen, you know, Massachusetts came up, I think it was September. Is that correct, Susan? When did Massachusetts' legislation, when did that bill get submitted?
January.
Yeah.
January. Okay, January. So already since then, we've already seen bills in Oregon and Vermont. So these things happen very quickly, that one state catches on to that and the other states start to follow behind them. And the other thing that we have to think about too now is it's not only state initiatives. We're seeing these things in counties and cities, towns. The city and county of Sacramento recently passed an ordinance. Even where I am in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, where we kind of think probably nothing's ever going to happen in there. In Abington, PA, there's an ordinance that they're trying to push through that you must be licensed to be a Reiki practitioner. And if there's a fine of up to $1,000 in jail time, okay, if you don't have a license.
Even jail time?
So this is, yes, up to 10 days of jail time. Yes.
Okay, now the worst place. You know how crazy Rikers is right now?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a time where we need to like be relaxed and rest on our laurels. Yeah. Even in Massachusetts, there's 14 cities and towns that require licensure for people to practice Reiki and other holistic services. So it's, it's a serious thing. It's not just a state initiative. Sometimes it can be a city, county initiative. So we have to really keep our eyes open.
No, and I think, probably 90% of Reiki practitioners Reiki 1, and you think it won't affect me teaching, but if you cannot even offer it to your neighbors, then it really affects like every person who ever takes a training. It's, because those
exactly
people go to jail just for like relieving a headache from a friend.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we can't just say, oh, it's just Massachusetts, everyone's worried about Massachusetts, which they are. We need to be like proactive and really follow what's happening in our towns, in our counties, in our states.
So basically it's really affecting our capacity to offer, to teach. Is there any other freedom that we see? Like, is there anything that we gain from having a licensure, or any other freedom we may lose beyond, which is already basically, you took me completely out, but is there anything else that we should consider as a consequences from licensing?
I don't see anything positive. I really feel that it's detrimental. There's this idea, right, that licensing gives you credibility.
Yeah.
But when you scratch the surface, people who have professions where there's physical harm, doctors, nurses, licensing can make sense. That there is some, very basic minimum standard. And yet, even then, I think it's, accidents, misdiagnosis, mistreatment in hospitals is like the third leading cause of death. So it does not create the best practitioner. And we all know that. When we go to look for a professional, what do? You do research, and you probably talk to people for a referral. So I just think this notion is misconceived. And when we really look at the nature of our practice in Reiki, it does not lend itself to standardization or uniformity. I think we're blessed that there is so much diversity in Reiki. And, that cannot be sustained in a licensing environment, because there are specific courses, there are specific ways you teach. This is all defined by other people, not by us. And, for me, when it comes to standards of practice, if we want to respect one another as practitioners, we need to foster that diversity, not shut it down. Yeah. So, there are these deeply embedded issues that I think it's not the first thing you think about when you say, oh, wouldn't it be great if we were all licensed? The other, another facet is that virtually everybody who practices Reiki experiences it as spiritual practice. And spiritual practice flourishes because of that inner relationship, not adhering so much to externals. You know, the form has its place, and I'm certainly a traditionalist in that respect. And simultaneously, that is not the whole story. I mean, we're trained to listen to our hands. We're trained to listen to our intuition. You know, Hawaii Takata always said, this is the practice, watch my hands and let Reiki teach you. Listen to your hands. You know, so this paradox is a treasure. And I mean, I think all of us, you know, have that experience. But I'm very concerned that that will be the thing over time that we lose, because the emphasis will be on the externals, how you treat different coursework you have to take, you know, and we'll lose that part.
No, this is, for me, what you're saying is super deeply concerning, because there is already a vision of Reiki. I diagnose, I heal, but we're really not doing the work. So the more, beyond obviously the cost of the license, the loss of diversity, we're also shifting the practice to almost alternative medicine versus spiritual practice. That for me is deeply concerning, because at the end we're just placing our hands and allowing and supporting someone's process, but it's not our own.
Mm-hmm.
And the head is very strange, as you say, if the externals become almost very standardized, like almost like health provider, then there is a shift that is probably not the best for the practice as well, which
for me, I consider it a potential tragedy. I mean, I really, you know, feel so deeply about what we can lose in this kind of an environment. And the other thing you see legislatively is that the people who are making these decisions are not people who understand anything about Reiki practice. Mostly they don't know what it is at all.
Not even one Reiki practitioner?
Yeah, no.
Because, like, for example, that is, you know, I'm really not looking forward to this, but if I have people like you of Reiki Unified, right, that come from different lineages, whom I deeply respect and have a deep knowledge, like, for example, you studied with Hawaii Takata, right? Like, I will trust you to choose my curriculum. I may not agree, but I will respect the choice that went into it. But if someone who doesn't have that training, that background, or doesn't even practice Reiki will choose my curriculum, after I train in Japan and I've been practicing for years, I will not respect that. You know, it's also like beyond everything, the fact that people making those decisions may not be equipped to take it, right?
Right.
It's so, oh my God.
Yeah. So I think as we look at the implications, you know, it's like this is the pivotal or critical part, is that for most of us, me included, I've never done anything like this. I've never read a bill in my life until Reiki Unified, and nor did I ever want to. And often I still don't want to, but it's like when you start to read it and see the kind of thinking that is such a miss for the practice that we do. Yeah. And that a lot of times things can be ambiguous in bills. So they may say, you will need to take this course. No, you will need to take courses such as this. And What are you not saying?
You may have to take another 10 later on.
Well, and you will, because you'll have to renew your license if it's following the massage therapy model, which a lot of these bills do. Oftentimes they just fold all the other complementary practices into the massage frame.
I am speechless because I was concerned, and now I'm grieving, I'm concerned, I have all my emotions coming up, because I think you brought to life all like different layers of it that I, even with that training that I did with you, hadn't seen. I had seen the cost, I had seen the loss of diversity, which I was not aware, but this part was also shifting from spiritual to more externals. And then this that you're saying is really something that should concern all of us, as well as the fact that it affects Reiki 1 as well, right?
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Because then you came together and already fighting this. So what a little bit are you doing, and how can we all support you? I don't know who wants to take that. Helen, Rita, I think Christopher is having trouble with the signal, so feel free to jump. Rita is looking like she's smiling.
As far as like being practitioners wanting to help, the most important thing you can do today, right now, or right after the podcast, is sign the change.org petition that we have on the ReikiUnified.com site. So that's the opposing the legislation in Massachusetts. So you don't have to live in Massachusetts. You can still sign that petition. Right now we have about 13,092. I checked this afternoon, but we need many, many more. We need like at least $25,000. That's $25,000, 25,000 practitioners. We'll take $25,000.
Everybody's going to cut off to teach Reiki if we don't sign it, right?
No, we need a lot of more practitioners to sign on, because they need to see that we are all united and we're all feeling very strong about our practice, because we will be needing to do these petitions for every single place we find out that this is happening, because legislators need to know there's a large group of people who are not happy about what's happening to their practice. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't cost anything to sign on to that petition. We also have detailed information on the website, ReikiUnified.com, about the bills that have been presented thus far. So every time a bill is presented, we create a page about that. We provide a link to your legislators so you can write to the legislators, and don't get nervous about writing to them, because we also provide samples, sample letters, how to talk to your legislators. It makes it very easy to understand. There's talking points. So we've made it really easy for people to get this information. So we also do a monthly update. So if you go on Reiki Unified and sign up to be one of our supporters, you will get the monthly update about what's happening currently in the United States. And how do we find out about those things that are happening in the United States? Well, another thing you can do is connect with other Reiki practitioners that you know in your state, outside of your state, other holistic practitioners, because again, these bills are just not for Reiki, they're for other things too, like Qigong and polarity therapies and other kind of energy therapies. So talk to people, because they might know where other things are happening, and we need to find those things too. So we need you to connect with those communities. We also will do Zoom presentations, just like we're doing for you tonight, Nathalie. So if somebody wants a presentation for the group, we're willing to do that as well. And then we also need just people to be proactive in their state. You can find that legislative information on the website for your state. And we would really love to have volunteers. We can connect with us on Reiki Unified, and we can show you how to check the legislative things that are coming up in your state. We need to be checking those like once a week, because things happen very quickly. Sometimes these bills get passed through very quickly. They don't want anyone to know they're happening. So that's another way that you can help. So yeah, we just need to keep our eyes and ears peeled and open and help each other out, really come together as a community.
I love that you made it so simple for all of us, right? Because I basically will not know. I can sign a petition, but all the rest, contacting like my legislator, I will not know what to write. So I think it's really great we have that. For the petition, we're trained to get from 13, almost 14,000 to 25,000. What is the deadline for that? So we also give people like, okay, don't forget so much because we actually need those signatures pretty soon, probably, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's totally urgent because in Massachusetts, where this petition is aimed, okay, it goes to every member of the committee that the bill is before. So right now the bill is with the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure. And every time someone signs the petition, their email goes to every member of that committee. And that committee in Massachusetts, every bill that's filed has a public hearing. And they only have, I think, 6 bills left that haven't been heard. And this is one of them. So it could be right after Thanksgiving or the week after. So it's urgent that we get those signatures.
Perfect. So yes, since we have the holidays, a few days in the US, it's great for people to take 5 minutes and do it. I did it like in 2 minutes, like it was super fast and I will be sharing beyond the Reiki Unified link, I will be sharing a direct link to the petition. So if people just want to go directly and do that in the podcast notes, I'll do that as well. I have a question. If I live outside of the US, can I sign that petition, or is only US-based people who can sign?
You can also sign if you live outside the US.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to the actual hearing and testifying, this needs to be Massachusetts residents. But written testimony can also come from people beyond the state.
That is lovely to know, because I know some people live in Europe and they may say like, oh, those poor Americans, and laugh, but it may end up, if we don't fight it here and it starts to take up, it can go to other countries as well.
Yeah, I just like to make a little comment about what has happened since February of this year. It's like, yes, there was Massachusetts, and then there was Vermont, then there was the Sacramento event. And then there've been a flurry of other ones. There was Oregon, North Dakota. They're not all, it varies kind of what they're doing, but that we're on the radar and they want to, at a minimum, register us. And I think in most cases, registration just opens the door for licensing in, another legislative session. What were some of those other states, Rita, where they were considering it that you had on your update?
A whole bunch of them.
Minnesota.
I know there was something in New York, Minnesota.
And Iowa, I believe, as well.
And that's just this year. And I mean, I don't think we've ever seen this before. Texas, I think that was another one.
Because also for them, it's money coming in, right? So we said it may be like traffic or whatever, but if you think there are hundreds of thousands of Reiki practitioners, and if you can get a few hundreds from Reiki 1 and a few thousand for teacher, it's a lot of money. So we also have to understand that probably like some states are struggling with budget, are going to say, of course I want to do this, right? So it becomes even more attractive with what has happened in terms of economy.
Yeah.
Well,
And
actually,
interesting research. You want to go ahead?
go ahead. You want to address it, Susan? Go
Well,
ahead.
there's a lot of research about occupational licensing. And one of the things they find is that in the end, so many people quit working because they can't afford the fees that the states end up losing revenue from those people that they would have collected taxes from. And just throw in another piece. The current administration and the last two, Trump, Obama, and Biden, have all issued either white papers or executive orders encouraging the states to pull back on the amount of occupational licensing that they are passing,
wow.
because they feel that it harms consumers and it harms small business people. I don't see the states listening, but
They give us some of a state, and in the same way, I like that you say, it doesn't matter what Reiki lineage or where are your political beliefs, like we all align on this licensing thing is a bad thing, right? So
Yeah.
I love that at the end there is a unity, and I'm hoping that we can fight it and actually become stronger as a community. I'm kind of the optimist, right? I moved here with like $2,000 in a suitcase, so I still believe in the dream that you can actually become what you want. So I'm hoping there is that same freedom for the rest of my life and for every practitioner training right now. But what I would love to see, because the first time I heard about it, the reason I'm like, well, there are some people who are really not as responsible with their Reiki practice. And I think, the way they communicate or the way they act or some of the trainings are not ideal. So be